Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. Our today's topic is Swiss Cadet rifles. A few words about Swiss Cadet schools, which are entirely different from German or Austrian ones. So in this imperial states, the cadet school usually was for the infants of noble family, which were prepared for their service as army officers. Not so in Switzerland. In Switzerland, these were ordinary schools, and they were never to prepare for officer service, more or less they were for general army service. The first one was founded 17 something, and most of the schools were founded between 1830 and 1847 because of the German unification wars around. So there was battle at Königgrätz, which is called Sadova in English or in French because we cannot pronounce the word Königgrätz. And then you have the Prusso-France wars in 1870 or 1871, and so on and so forth. So in 1874, Switzerland had about 150 cadet corps, and this was the highest number ever. And it was for pupils between 10 and 15 years, usually males. After 1874, Swiss school made the gymnastics a compulsory subject in the school, and that's why some of the cadet corps dissolved. In the years between World War I and World War II, many of the corps dissolved because some people thought it is not necessary anymore. And in 1936, the remaining corps then founded the Eidgenössische Kadettverband, so a federal union of this cadet corps. In 1972, the Swiss Federation cut any subsidization for the cadet movement, and this was more or less the end for all of these cadet schools, which still did military service. Many of them were in the canton Aargau, and I show you why. Here you see a profile map of Switzerland, and you see you have some mountains here. I hope you see it. This is like a wall with moats. This is the Lake of Constance, and the only way you can enter Switzerland relatively easy is here the valley of the river Aare, the Aaretal. So this was, Aare is the tripwire if you want to invent Switzerland. And that is why the people there apparently were on special alert and especially prepared for such things. What remained nowadays from the Swiss cadet system is the rifles and some reenactment. I put you a link in the video description, and there you find from the canton Aargau kind of a reenactment page if you are interested to do so. And I put you also a link, it's in German only, from the Kantonsschule Appenzell about the history of their cadet corps. You can have a look there if you are interested. And now we can talk about guns. In the following short sequence, you will see the difference, or one of the differences, between a normal rifle and a cadet rifle. You may have noticed the difference in length. In cadet rifles, the barrel is about 80 to 90 centimeters or 3 feet long, and the rifle overall is 110, 120, so about 4 feet. The normal infantry rifles are of course much larger. The barrel length there starts with 110 and is sometimes even 130. For the locks, sometimes the cadet rifle have a little bit smaller locks than ordinary infantry rifles. Sometimes the size is the same. Maybe they took whatever was cheaper or what was at hand at the time. And this rule of the barrel length applies to all percussion cadet rifles, which you will see in this video, because for most of them I will show you only the lock. And there is a huge variety because every corps was free to choose whatever rifle it desired, and that's why it's a complete mess. No one knows how many rifles were used how often, and just there's no documentation about this. So what you've seen in the introduction and you see right now is the oldest Swiss Cadet rifle I own, and this is a rifle from 1817 with a modification 1847, and I will show you some details now. So what you see here is a Swiss Cadet rifle. I won this at an auction after we dissolved the armory of the county Thurgau. So this rifle served in the county Thurgau, and it's Belgian made. It was made 1812, and it has an adaptation to percussion. This is either done 1842 or 1847. I have different numbers about this. And you see there are two holes here, which are still from the time when this was a flintlock, and now it's percussion. And see on this side there is a number 18, but this is not the serial number. This is very likely the caliber, which is exactly 18 millimeters, so almost like a 12 gauge gun, shotgun nowadays. And I will talk you a little more about it. Unmodified, the guns may have looked like this. This is also a Belgian rifle. The company is Rosat. You see, you can still see that, and it's from Liège. It's made 1817, and you see, you have this heart-shaped cock here. There are other shapes. You see this one. This looks like the neck of a swan. This type you find often on English rifles, like the Baker rifle or on the Brown Bess. Here's these heart-shaped ones. You find on Prussian rifles and also on French rifles. The Charleville, for instance, had such one. Then there are one which look like snakes, which you find on weapons made in Suhl in Thuringia, Germany. And there are also one which are more or less like a ring, but I do not know any region where this ring-shaped things were made. So what you see in this picture actually are the different types. In 1817 there was no percussion, so in this time these flintlocks were made, and then in 1842 Switzerland was not a federal state it was today. It was more a federation of states, but we somehow agreed on some changes on the rifles, and then they were adapted to percussion or then newly built percussions. And these rifles were then changed again in 1506, or others were even later, and they received a smaller barrel and they got a rear sight. And also the barrels were then rifled. This barrel, of course, is smoothbore. What you also see is that there is something cut away here, because the boys had smaller faces, and in order to aim properly, apparently we had to move the head more to the gun. Today you have more like this, this cheek rests here, which are more wide. So we make the stock bigger, and here we made the stock smaller in order to aim properly. Just shortly to the lock, you can clearly see that this is somehow blended together, and this is not a single part, as you will see later. And the major disadvantage of this construction is that the spark has to go around the corner, so it goes up this way and has to go this way down, which is not apparently not very good. And I will not disassemble this, but you can see here such a lock from the rear side, with the cock, and you have here this, I think this is called nut, and this is where the trigger engages. It lifts this thing, and if this one is cocked, this one will turn, driven by the mainspring, and then the hammer will fall down. It's very nice construction. I actually found a rifle which looks exactly like the one I have in the internet in an auction house. It's basically the same rifle, but the lock is clearly different. And there is written production date 1830, so this one apparently was made already as a percussion rifle. And you see the lock blade is a little bit different. Apparently all other parts of the rifle were still good enough to be produced without changes. We just changed the lock to keep this cheap. This is basically one of the things when you see the Swiss Cadet rifles. They were for ordinary people, so do not expect great craftsmanship or highly expensive rifles with a lot of exotic things there. This is, if you want to wish to put it like this, the AliExpress or the Temu of this time were these rifles. So they are made easy, cheap, and just for to be used and not to be shown. So I will show you now the pictures of 4 rifles, which actually should be the same, but they are not quite. So there's one, also like mine, from 1817 and modified from the county of Bern. And you see, this is apparently a converted flintlock, the Percussion. The next one, also a converted one, is without any specific county, but it's also a converted one. And you see this very special way of converting this. Yeah. I have this a little bit more in detail here. So I've never seen such an, how do you call this, where you put on the piston. I do not know the exact word in English. But what you can see, this the stamp, this is from Albert Francois, and this is made in Belgium, in Liège. So, next one then is from Geneva, and this is apparently not a converted one, this is a newly made, you see it's 1842. And there you might spot that the hammer looks a little bit different, and also there is an, you may recognize this already as a rear sight. And on the last one I will show you, this is also an 1842 from Solothurn, and there you already see this one already received a real rear sight. And I don't think that this is a converted one, but I cannot tell for sure. This is probably an earlier production, later production. Just shortly, what you see here, this special piston holder, this is typically for Zurich. So this was made especially for Zurich, or I think also in Belgium, or the Zurich made it themselves, but this you find on Cadet rifles converted in the country of Zurich. So this is the next rifle I can show you in real life, and this is from the company Spangenberg and Sauer from Thuringia in Germany, and this is made after 1859, and I show you in a moment why. So I will show you the stamp a little more in detail. There you see this is a crown, and then there is SP and SR, which is Spangenberg and Sauer. The family Spangenberg can be traced back to 15 something in Thuringia in Germany, and during the time of the 30-year War, so in 1620, they started, or they got involved in the gun business. First they made stocks, I think, and then later on they made completely guns. And then Sauer joined in, and for a short time a third party joined in, which was called then Spangenberg, Sauer und Sturm, and Sturm went out. And in the time which is interesting for us, between 1840 and 1880, this company produced or adapted about 200,000 rifles and pistols. This is 5,000 a year. This is a lot for such a small company. And this later became the company Sauer. So Spangenberg, the widow of Mr. Spangenberg, had to sell then her part of the company to Sauer, which became J.P. Sauer and Sons, which then became Sig Sauer. So when you see of your new, if you're US and you have your new assault rifle, this is the grandfather of Sig and Sauer. This is Spangenberg and Sauer. So this is the ancestor of your new assault rifle. So the rifle was produced past 1859, and you see this on the shape of the piston, and you also may see, or you may not see, that the caliber is not 18 millimeters anymore, it is 10.4. In the time of the Napoleonic War, it was of advantage to have a larger caliber than the enemy, because then you could use the ammunition. A small bullet fits into a wide barrel, but not vice versa. But the ballistics, of course, is poor. And here then we decided to make the caliber smaller and smaller. This is with the 10.4, and because this improved the ballistic, these rifles now have rear sights, which the ones before did not have. So I will now show you a few detailed pictures of rifles where I can make pictures in the Kessler auction house, run or operated by Werner Kessler in Kreuzlingen, Switzerland. So if you're interested in such weapons, that's the place where you should go to. And you see, this is our Spangenberg and Sauer, and this I'm not so sure whether it's the same or not, because I cannot really system. It could also be Spangenberg and Sauer, no? And there is written Suhl, and also the crown, which on top does not look really nice as a crown. It looks more like an, two W's or something like this. And the very old rifles, the marking of Suhl was a chicken. So if you find an old flintlock with a chicken, this is then very likely made in Suhl. So this is another rifle made in Suhl by a gunsmith named Valentin Christoph Schilling. And so this is his marking. He also has a nice crown on top, and this is also a Percussion Cadet rifle. And now I will show you two different rifles made by, I hope you can read it somehow, I will change it a little bit so then get by Boyret and Ferres in Belgium Liege. And here you see this BF, and there is a crown on top which has just like spikes on top of it. And on the next rifle, this is also an BF, but you see the crown looks very much different. So apparently they changed the company logo in this time. So I told you in the beginning, when you have this conversion flintlock, that the spark has somehow to move a little bit around the corner. And this changed over time. And you see, when the next adaptation, the rifles received a rear sight, and you see the hammer is bended slightly towards the barrel, so that the spark can more or less enter the barrel from the side and does not have to go around the corner anymore. And on this one, also is with Cadet rifle, there you see it's changed. Here the old piston would be here, this is changed in the middle, that the spark can ignite the powder more easily. By the way, on this rifle, this is also a Cadet rifle, and there is printed Männedorf on the barrel. And Männedorf is a town south of Zurich, and they had a Cadet corps until 1966. And today we have Verkehrskadetten, so this is cadets which regulate the traffic, more or less in support of the police. But it's not uncommon that you find the name of the town which owned this rifle imprinted on the barrel. So I see this 2 times, but it's not so that every town did this. It's just by chance when you find something like this. What you see here are Vetterli Cadet rifles, and they look very much alike, but actually they are not. This is a so-called Type 1, the upper one, and this is a so-called Type 2. And the difference is, see, Type 1 has this mud guard, or however you want to call this, so it protects the opening here, or is able to protect the opening, and also the sight is slightly different. And this one, you see there are holes drilled in, one, and the other one is here. I hope you can see this, at least kind of. There's the other one. This is when somehow the rifle develops overpressure. That's not the bolt is throwing into your face, but then the gas can go to some place. So Gasentlastungsbohrung is the German word for this. Yeah, impossible to translate in English. but this is kind of protection. The Type 2, you will see, has a slightly different side. I put them side by side, oops, that you may see it more clearly. Here this mudguard is lacking, and also these holes are lacking. But I have seen also these rifles with such holes, and this is possible because sometimes the Type 2 are converted into the Type 1s are converted into Type 2. So just we remove this dust cover. The Type 1 is much more rare than the Type 2. So it was much less produced, and after this many of the Type 1 were converted into Type 2 by removing this lid. And in the last 20 or 22 years I came across two of these Type 1s. One of them I could buy, the other one I could not. And I saw maybe 60, maybe 100, but a lot more of Type 2 Cadet, Federally Cadet rifles. So the Type 2 is much more common, much more easy to find, and the Type 1 is very rare and hard to find. Because I plan to make a video just about Federally rifles, I will not talk in any detail about these rifles right now. So I will go to the next one. The last rifle I can show you is this Cadet rifle model 1897. And there are already videos about this rifle. I put you a link in the description for the one from Bloke on the Range and for the one from Ian McCallum from ForgottenWeapons.com. And there's not much to add for me from the technical side, maybe just from the historical side. In 1893 the Federally rifles were used up, and they calculated, or not calculated, they knew about 6,000 people were enrolled in the Cadet Corps in Switzerland at this time, and we calculated that we need about 4,000 rifles to equip them. And we had something like a competition, and in this nice book, Die Repetiergewehre der Schweiz, so Swiss Repeating Arms, available unfortunately in German only, there are several of the contenders. See, this one is a SIG rifle, this one is from Waffenfabrik Baden, this one is again a SIG rifle. You see, this looks slightly different when they come in Schmidt-Rubin rifles. I think I can bring this a little bit closer. Yeah, see, it looks different, you can see it. And there were one more suggested by Colonel Rubin, the one who invented with Schmidt together the Schmidt-Rubin rifle. This was based on a Martini. So there were 6 contenders, and they were compared to the Federally 1870. And the winner is this one, Waffenfabrik Bern. The price of the rifle was 73 francs, and the government paid 40%, and the remaining had to be paid by the school or the municipality or whoever felt responsible for the Cadet Corps at this time. And this would cost the government about 120,000 francs, and the price for the municipality or for the school was then 40 francs, so about the same as the price of a Federally rifle. Unfortunately, today you won't get anything of any of these rifles for 40 or for 70 francs. The neat feature, which all more or less know already, but I tell it anyway, is when you see the rear side. It has 2 different graduations. One is for the Cadet rifle, for the Cadet ammo, and the other one is for the service ammo. And you see the Cadet goes only up to 400, and when you shoot 400 with the Cadet rifle, you are about 300 with the service rifle. So we shoot a little bit different, but it's clear because this ammunition for the Cadets is weaker than the one for the army. It's a straight pull. You turn this straight. you can open it and it's a single shot, so there is no magazine. There are actually rifles where have a closed magazine well, and this comes from modifications of these rifles. So all in all there were a couple of modifications. We changed here the screw on this one, then we made changes here to the breech. We made a different spring. We made the how do you call this, the firing pin stronger. And some of these rifles we used stocks from the so-called Kurzgewehr, and they have a closed magazine well. So when you see a Cadet rifle with a closed magazine well, does not mean they removed the magazine, but it's not the stock which was intended exactly for this rifle. So then I'm at the end of today's video. Thank you very much for your time and for your attention. It is a real mess with these Cadet rifles, in particular in the percussion time. Not much has left from the flintlock time. You have a lot of different percussions, and then with the Federally it gets more or less uniform. And this one was the last dedicated service or Cadet rifle, and with the introduction of the assault rifle 57, the Cadets then used the 57 for shooting. Or actually not Cadets, it's Jungschützen, something different. So thank you once more very much for watching. Have a nice time.